Hey everyone, very excited to host an investor, and I will acknowledge Tetsuro and Harizury invested before I even joined Orita, so I get no credit for this. But yeah, on the Orita Podcast, I'm Aaron Schwartz, one of the co-founders of Orita. We build AI customer segments for a bunch of Klaviyo's biggest brands. Now we're jumping into ads, but Tetsuro, we can talk about that maybe offline as we get there. It's good to see you, man. I'd love for you to do a proper intro of yourself, your background. Don't be shy. Let us know how you got here, and I'll follow up with 400 questions.
Well, thanks for having me on, Aaron. I think it's great to be on the show, and it's great to be an investor in Orita. I'm Tetsuro. I work really two hats. One is a company called Off Topic, which I'm the CEO of. It's a podcasting company. We're trying to do podcasts. We currently run 3 podcasts, and one being a tech-focused one being a retail-focused one, and the last one being a VC-focused one. And then we also do consulting work on top of that. And then another extension of what I do is I work with a company called Harizury, which is a conglomerate retail company based in Japan. We own about 8-9 brands underneath us. And the main one being a leather goods brand called Tsuchiya Kaban, 9-figure revenue. We operate about 50 stores across Japan, leather goods, jewelry, cut glass brand, kind of a bunch of different stuff. And then, domestically, we've acquired a few companies and we've also invested in a few companies. And in the US, we've invested in retail brands, as well as retail software, as well as kind of retail adjacent companies as well.
I love it. Thank you. I'm going to go off script. I got too many questions.
Hey, let's do it.
Good. Let's just go. I know you not that well, Tetsuro, but well enough to, I feel comfortable kind of being on the hot seat. When you guys started Off Topic, was it always going to be, was it one podcast that turned into 3? Is there more to go? What was the original conceit and how has it changed over time?
Yeah, so my background, I used to work at a VC firm in Japan. It's a tech company that also did VC investments. We were one of the first investors in Twitter, and we brought Twitter into the Japanese market. I wasn't part of the team back then, but that's what that company did. And this Off Topic podcast started off as a side project between me and my co-host being kind of the one with a little bit of background in media. She started a blog post in high school of interviewing different founders, and this is back, almost 10 years ago now, I think. But yeah, so she's the one who kind of made the proposition. Podcasts were pretty big in the US at that time, especially among kind of the VC crowd. This is back in 2018. And I also was looking to potentially invest in a company called Anchor back then. And I unfortunately wasn't able to make the investment, but I was always interested in the space and we decided to do it. And it started off again as a side project and it kind of went from there. So we had no expectations of making this into a company.
It is now though. So what is where's the company going? You guys are massive in Japan from everything I can tell. I try it, I can use Google Translate on some stuff, but I struggle. What's the audience? What are they getting from listening to you?
Yeah, so the main objective of what we do at Off Topic is provide nuance to a lot of our audience members. And specifically the thing we kind of do is we talk about what's happening in the US contextually, not just kind of headlines and kind of what is growing, but why things are growing, why things are kind of operating the way it is to the Japanese audience. And so our main off-topic one, we talk about tech in general, we talk about business, we talk about culture, and then we do a more niche version of that with our retail podcast called Serial Talk, which we also operate a newsletter, but that again is talking about the US D2C economy to the Japanese audience. Again, it's this, a lot of people in Japan, they read and hear about things, what's happening in the US, but they don't fully understand it. And me kind of growing up in both cultures, I'm able to kind of put my foot in both doors. And so I'm able to translate the culture a little bit better.
I mean, you went to Babson, right? So you have my sense is you've always had a very entrepreneurial spirit. Is that fair?
Yeah, I think I joined Babson without knowing about its entrepreneurial programs, so it was just really happenstance. But I think I was always kind of really interested in on that side of things, especially with investing as well. And so after that, I joined a company in Japan. It's a VC firm. Yeah, it was really eye opening, kind of understanding the tech ecosystem, the startup ecosystem.
When you're looking at kind of what's happening in the US and you're trying to get the context, how much of this is you guys are spending a ton of time researching companies and how much is just you've been in the ecosystem for a long time and you're okay, cool, Amazon did their whatever, buy with Amazon or whatever the buy for me product is, right? And it's you're seeing this and you have enough context that you're already a good enough translator? Like, how do you guys approach the building?
Yeah, I think we always have our kind of perspective on things, but it all starts off with a ton of reading and a ton of kind of information ingestion. And this is something, I spend at least 4 or 5 hours a day just reading different articles, reading Twitter, reading all these different I'm subscribed to probably over 200 Substacks at this point. And so it's constantly kind of digesting information and understanding from kind of the best experts and kind of piecing that together. Because I think one thing that's really interesting is you see people in a lot of different industries actually talk about the same thing, but in different ways. And so you're able to kind of tie all that together.
What are some of the like recent changes? I mean, we can jump into like AI and agentic commerce. We can completely avoid that. I don't really care. Like, what are some of the things that have been most fascinating to you as you've kind of been diving deep and that you're kind of bringing to your audience?
Yeah, I always think, with like agentic commerce, with AI in, how it affects marketing, how it affects different things, there's always kind of a direct effect, and then there's always a secondary and tertiary effect. And I think oftentimes what we off topic try to focus on is what is the secondary, what is the tertiary effect, right? And so like a very common one that I always talk about is that, sure, like AI is going to dramatically reduce the cost to create content and to create advertisements, to create interesting creatives. But at the same time, that applies to everyone. And so if everybody starts creating content, then at some point the cost of actually getting someone's attention is going to be higher and higher. And so yes, like maybe the budget to create things decreases, but perhaps the cost to acquire a customer actually increases because of that. Or people have to shift their resources more towards brand marketing or different types of stuff. So I think like that, those are the type of things that we try to kind of talk about in our podcast.
If you think about that one in particular, like obviously that speaks to a brand who's thinking about their customers across many different channels, and it's easier for them, and they might be ahead of the curve, but they're probably ahead of the curve by months, not years, right?
Yeah.
It's not like a competitive advantage necessarily. How much of what you're talking about do you think actually does extend kind of category by category or like industry by industry? Probably better said, like same for financial services, healthcare. And is it just like it happens faster in commerce, or you just know commerce better? Like,
Yeah, I think commerce is one of the leading edges in terms of how the industry overall, how the economy overall kind of evolves. And I think if you look at culturally, it usually starts off with culture, and then it translates into physical consumer products. And then it goes into consumer software, and then 3 years down the line, it comes into B2B. So like even if you see like the design trends today, like how they translate into the B2B space, like it all comes usually from kind of consumer founders translating their kind of thoughts and designs into kind of B2B work.
I feel like I'm talking to Philip and Brian in future commerce right now too. So this is great. I'm like, you guys
I'm
are.
a big fan. I'm a big fan. So.
Okay. It is always fun when I bump into those guys and I'm like, you're legit living in a future that I am too lazy to like ever get towards, but I love it. And like, I like to consume it and learn and just like, wow, the world is cool. I want to come back to the attention question because it's actually something that we think a lot about. And you haven't gotten like a investor pitch from Orita in a long time, but obviously like our vision and how we think about the ecosystem is very much tied to that. But I am curious, can you share how you found Orita in the first place and like why you invested? And from there, I want to, not specifically about us because the business from 2 years ago or whatever is like obviously different, but I want to go into like how you think about investing in general. So what was the kind of like initiation or like the evolution of your relationship with DB and Zach and Orita?
Yeah, I think we met DB, and we meaning me and Yuji, who's part of the Harizury team. We met DB through Matt from Matt Bauer from Faring, and we've been chatting with Matt every single time we visit New York. And just to kind of stay in touch, we were customers of Faring, and we still are. And so that's how we kind of
that's how you met Matt. Got it.
Yeah. So we just contacted Matt out of the blue saying, we're customers. We want to chat. Like, we want to learn more about you. We were actually considering investing at some point, but I think I ended up not working out. But from there, Matt was kind enough to introduce us to DB. And this is super, super early. And, we're like, if Matt's advising this company, like we're gonna say yes. And so that's how we ended up investing in Orita.
That's very cool. I think the first time I met you, you were giving DB, or like I literally like saw you in an escalator because I had come from a meeting and you were leaving Shop Talk giving DB really fancy whiskey, and I was very jealous. So I'm like, oh, I should have made the connection faster. But you got us some really delicious chocolate last time, so thank you. That was like the little cookies. It was beautiful.
Yeah, I think we partially want to be known for giving out really good Japanese snacks and gifts.
You're like, most investors aren't useful. We will at least give you snacks. So this is
yes.
All right. So you're like obviously at the bleeding edge and thinking about trends in the industry, but then in a weird way, compared to like many investors right now, you still invest in brands, but obviously you do the enablement you mentioned adjacent. How do you look at, I mean, I've got a bunch of questions here, but let's start with like when you're inspecting a company at the earliest stages and you're thinking about the founders, are the attributes of like the Kevin from IMI versus the DB from Orita, is it like you're looking for the same attributes, or is there something different when you're thinking about a brand founder versus like a tech founder?
Yeah, I think our investment strategy at Harizury is a little bit different from kind of traditional venture, partially because it's more of a corporate venture capital, right? And so we have slightly different objectives. Obviously, we're always looking for a capital gain and a return on our investment, but there's additional kind of value that that we kind of look for. One is just kind of how easy it is to communicate with the founders and how much they're willing to share with us. Because we're there obviously to potentially be customers, to potentially help, but we're also there to learn from the founders because the founders are at the cutting edge of different things, right? And so I can't tell you how many times Kevin from IMI, his investor updates or just talking to him, he mentions out of the blue a really interesting software that he's testing out in his company, and we look at it and that's honestly how we found some of the companies we've invested in as well. And so, it's kind of learning from founders and seeing if we can apply it to our businesses. And I think that's something, we pride ourselves in is we don't want to ask too much of founders, but when we do kind of sit down with them, at least once a quarter or once or twice a year, we kind of get the most out of it, and kind of really learn from them what they're doing.
Interesting. And then if you think about kind of like your request for startups right now, right? Like you could go meet with any company. Is it actually equal balance of commerce enablement versus brands? Are you more interested in one or the other at this point?
Yeah, I think this has shifted over time. I think, maybe a few years ago, we were a lot more focused on the software side, and almost all of our investments were on the software side. I think a few years before that, it was more brands. And so it kind of goes back and forth. And I think the industry itself has gone back and forth, right? And I think Harley from Shopify said it best. I think we are in the golden era of brands again. And so, I think currently some of our investments are a little bit more focused on the brand side. I think with software, especially with this AI wave that we're seeing, we're always kind of questioning like how much is this kind of replaceable? How much can we actually build it ourselves? How much is Shopify going to build this? And so those are questions we're always kind of asking ourselves now.
I love it. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, like we're very fortunate to work with IMI. I think I actually met Kevin when he was at Pear. I'm pretty sure I picked Kevin on Passport Shipping, my old company. Like, I think I was trying to figure this out. So obviously, like, just, it's like we're buddies, but I followed the LinkedIn journey. We work with Isabel there, and they're just like a wonderful business. But I know like going to subscription was a very big piece for them. When you're looking at the brand side in particular, are there certain attributes of companies where you think these are the ones that are, you guys might have dual purposes, but you still do want that capital return. So there's still like some venture scale outcomes that you're looking for. What are the best brands doing today?
Yeah, I think the best brands, especially early on today, that we see are ones that understand where consumer behavior and attention are headed. And so it's a mixture. So one is the marketing side, which is exactly that, which I mentioned. They have essentially a hack or an insight about how to acquire customers, right? And that could be a creator, leveraging his audience. That could be, someone, like Comfort doing incredibly well with their TikTok. We're not investors or anything, but, they've done incredibly well. And then the second side is product. I think, at Harizury, we operate multiple brands where our products are handcrafted. Like we have a very, very focused mission around craftsmanship. And so, any company, I think more than ever now in the US today, I think more D2C brands or more brands are focused on craft and actually building good product. You saw this with some of the companies most recently that have kind of popped off. But yeah, I think it's a mixture of kind of, is it a good product, and then yeah, do they have a marketing kind of insight that we haven't seen before.
I mean, there's something like the great brand or the authenticity, I think, really stands out on the companies that are scaling quickly. This also goes back to your comment earlier about attention, right? It's like
Mhm.
in a world where everybody's going to have great creative and they can hit you up in 1,000 channels. It's like, how do you really stand out? I see that as like partially it's got to be an awesome product, because if it's
Mhm.
not, you're going to lose word of mouth, or word of mouth is going to go the wrong way, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, in your repeat purchases, but then having the authentic voice, like talking to people when you have something they can use, right? Information they can use. It could just be because it's fun, right? Doesn't,
Mhm.
like it could be like a Chubby's type of brand. Yeah, it's really interesting.
Yeah. I think on the product side, I think we're a little bit more, we're a little bit different in a sense because I think we're from Japan, and I think if you've ever been to Japan, there's this insane culture around craftsmanship and building good product, and Japanese consumers in general are much more focused on functions and features rather than the brand or the narrative, at least for most of the products you see, and they're really cheap as well. And so I think this is also why a lot of US consumer brands, it's hard for them to enter the Japanese market, because if you go to a convenience store, there's so many good things at such a cheap price that it's going to be insanely hard to compete.
Why I use Muji notebooks and I buy them
Yes,
in bulk.
yes,
And I'm like,
exactly.
this is the best quality notebook at the cheapest price, and it's
Yes.
consistent and I love it. Yeah, man. I've had the pleasure. I haven't spent enough time in Japan, but I've been in Tokyo a few times, and we actually went skiing in Niseko, which was
Nice, nice.
just unbelievable. I'm not even a skier. And I was like, this is the
Yeah.
great place.
There's, by the way, it's so overcrowded now. There's other places to go now as well, and the snow is beautiful in so many places in Japan.
Yeah, I don't know if we're going to be able to afford another trip there. So this isn't. I will no longer be kind of filling up the mountains, falling down all the time for everybody. Um, I want to linger on the attention side just for a minute, because this is something we think a lot about, which is
Mhm.
like, I ran a brand for a long time. That was kind of how I kind of stumbled into e-commerce in 2010. But then it was, funny enough, this is actually the t-shirt from our brand. We did like a Kickstarter in 2014, and this was one of the prizes. At the time, it was very easy, right? Like you could go and you could get anybody on Facebook. I was going to say not
Yeah.
anybody on Facebook, and they would just sign up. And then like when you posted, everybody would see it, and it was wonderful. And then all of a sudden it started to be throttled. And then every single channel obviously gets throttled quickly. What we are seeing in the ecosystem today is like, if you are a brand, you have more channels than ever to reach
Mhm.
your customer. And within many channels, obviously like WhatsApp and TikTok, or like WhatsApp and TikTok, but within email, you could use Klaviyo, you could use, like obviously MailChimp, you could use Iterable, you could use Braze, you could use anything. But what we are seeing is all of our brands and everybody's focused on the content, which makes
Mhm.
sense, and the personalization, which is cool. But if everybody else is also focusing on that, the place where we see the problem is like, actually there's just a lot of noise.
Mhm.
I mean, I feel it in my inbox. I don't subscribe to any like newsletters, but even just like inbound emails from like every single topic in the world is overwhelming. Do you think that is like a uniquely US phenomenon? Is that something that you guys are seeing in Japan as well? Like, I'm not sure how narrow my worldview is on this one.
Yeah, I think it depends on kind of the channel, right?
Mm,
Like newsletters are not a thing in Japan that much.
mm,
And then like SMS isn't a thing, but Line, which is essentially the WhatsApp of Japan, is a thing. And so like you see different channels being inundated with different brands. I have there's a really good quote by Gary Vaynerchuk, and he says, marketers ruin everything. I absolutely think this is true because marketers, their job is to find the next undervalued attention, and
yeah.
then they go into it, and then everybody starts going into it, right? And so now like newsletters are a big thing. I think newsletters specifically is really interesting and important for brands because more and more social media is turning into kind of a TikTok-esque, and so it's harder for you to reach directly to your followers and your
Mm.
fans. And newsletters and email is one of the few places, or SMS, that's left to actually do that.
We think about that in terms of like, it feels cheap, but it's actually really expensive, because when you
Yeah.
take risk and I unsubscribe, like I'm gone forever,
Yep.
versus, DB talks a lot about with ads. It's like, you can't really stop me from advertising to you. Like you may
Yeah.
like, be like, oh, this ad is annoying, but like I could hit you up with a, out of home ad on the highway, and there's plenty of options. But I don't know if there's actually a shift yet. We are definitely fundamental believers that like thinking about email as a cheap channel is absolutely the wrong way to do it. It's like wildly expensive if you like
Definitely.
take risk without upside. By the
Yeah.
way, we were just in Taiwan, and we went to the Brown house, and we got like a lot of photos with Brown. So I appreciate Line as not a user, but the character just get me
Yes.
very much.
And kind of going back to your point about attention, I think a lot of people talk about attention wars and how it's harder to get attention. I think that's a slightly I think there's a more nuanced way of putting it, where I think off topic, we talked about this since 2020. Is it's no longer just about attention; it's about attention and trust, right? So it's the attention and
Mhm.
trust economy, and so you have to kind of combine both in order to do well. And this is why like creators do a much better job than traditional celebrities online, because they build the trust through like daily vlogs or to different ways. And so I think this attention and trust kind of dynamic is I think what brands need to focus on a little bit more.
When you think about the creator economy, and so I want to think about this in terms of D2C, right? So
Mhm.
not you're getting sponsored or whatever.
Yeah.
Is there a way for creator there's clearly a path for creators to build a brand, right? Like we see it, there's like Road and Mr.
Yeah.
Beast and yada yada yada. Fine. Is there a way for a creator to be involved more on the like tech side, or like literally as a partner of? Or do you think it's like actually the best creators who build that trust, like it has to be their own brand because like otherwise they can't really kind of stamp the authenticity tied to somebody else?
Yeah, I don't think they have to have their own brand. I think oftentimes that's a mistake. I
Mm.
think you see a lot of creator brands popping up in the last 3 years or so. Most of them have failed. Most of them are not going to do that well, or they'll get the first million and then they won't continue. Like I've talked to the Feastables team before, and the reason why they're special and the reason why they can continue to do well is partially because Mr. Beast keeps growing, but also partially because they have the right dedicated team to it. And so I think one thing that brands should think more about is hiring creators and kind of integrating them as part of their team. And it doesn't have to be large creators, right? I think Graza did this extremely well when they first started. They hired a creator to reach out to other creators as well, and to also post content for them. So I think it's how do you involve more and more creators both internally but also externally is I think the biggest question for brands.
With my watch company, we were print on demand, and then we turned
Mhm.
it into a marketplace. And one of the things, and we completely stumbled on this, we did a partnership with a woman. I think her name was Catherine Lowe. She was like the first or second bachelor, like
Mm.
literally no record. This is a decade ago, and I, am not cool. I'm not up to speed on pop culture. Uh, and we must have sold $50,000 of watches, and they were just like it was designed by her. It wasn't like the best watch ever, but it was just, and we gave her a huge rev share, and then we started doing this. The philosophy that we actually got down to was like finding micro influencers or nano influencers,
Mhm.
whatever we were saying at the time, which was the idea of like, and even as silly as our kids were born at UCSF. And so it was like UCSF hospitals could do a watch. People who care deeply about that organization, there might be 35 people, but if they do a 20% donation, something tied to it. And so for a long time, I've thought about this side of it. And you kind of just led into this with Graza. Is it about like finding the niche audiences, or is it better to go get the one or two big guys, or is it like it truly is brand dependent?
I think it is partially brand dependent. I think the general strategy that I think you see today is you go after more nano and micro influencers. And
Mm.
I think this is a byproduct of the current attention channels that we live in today. So if you look at TikTok, most people, are like most people aren't going to see the content of people they follow, right? Most of the content you see are from people you don't follow, and so by that logic, if you pay a ton of money to one creator, who has 100 million followers on TikTok, maybe a few million will see them.
Mm.
Right. Versus if you pay the same money and hire 300 creators to post, one or two content per day for a month, right? you're gonna be able to flood the TikTok feeds enough so that people are gonna be more interested in it. Plus, the content looks more authentic because it looks like it's more regular people promoting the product.
It's interesting. Are there kind of going back to the off-topic discussion, are there other channels that you see starting to pop up more for brands? Like obviously TikTok, and we're talking about it, but is there anything new that's kind of in the offing?
Yeah, I think you know, I think a lot of people talk about in real life. Think this year you're going to see a lot of brands do IRL activations, and I talked about this in off topic at the end of last year. It's one of the key themes that we're starting to see is how do you build shared intimacy. And shared, I talk about shared in two different ways. Shared being it's shareable, right? A lot of people will take video of it and share it, creating UGC content. And then the other shared is it's a shared experience. So people want more shared experiences, and they want to experience things together. And so how do you create those moments? It's really hard to do that online. And so being able to do that offline is going to be, I think, key for a lot of folks. And so like last year, this isn't commerce related, but Ramp, which they have a corporate card, they did this really, really good live event using Brian, who was one of the actors in The Office. And they did a live activation there. They got a lot of impressions. They got a lot of people just posting videos. And so I think live streams, IRL stuff, that all contributes this idea of kind of shared intimacy.
I like it. I'm so sick of being in our basement and working, so this definitely resonates.
Well, I think it's partially why things like, like activity-based communities have really popped up in the last 1 or 2 years, right? Running clubs, chess clubs, all these things. People crave kind of being together in one place. And it's really hard to find that. And so I think if as a brand, you can create those moments. It's like Nike, I think in China, they did a shop, they did like a pop-up where they sell soup, right? It's like you can be kind of weird and out about, and it can still work.
Thanks for walking through this. I've been on the commerce tech side since 2017, but I deeply miss running a brand, specifically because you can literally go do this, go be creative, bring the community together, really, like in a more genuine way, connect with your customers, I think, which is pretty cool, and have them connect with each other.
Yeah, I think for brands, it's really and I think this also applies to software companies as well. I think a lot of people focus on IRL as like a channel. I think the overall idea behind this is how do you show effort, right? As a brand, how do you show that you care? And IRL is one way to do it now that makes sense. In the past, instead of the reason why infographics as a social media content used to work much better than before is because it was a lot harder to make. And so people appreciated the effort that you would put into it. And so that's why they're more willing to share it. It's harder to be copied as well. But now with AI, it's a lot easier. With Gemini, it's really easy to make an infographic at this point.
We finally got onto an AI market map, and now you're telling me that I should discount it because they probably just like pulled it together.
Well, it's not going to be as valuable, right? And so I think for brands and for people who want to kind of build attention, I think the question is how do you showcase that you're kind of putting the effort in? And so like behind the scenes content is going to be so much more important now, right? Like you see, like I think Rode and like a few other kind of companies have done this where they not only show the creative of the ad, they show how they made it because, the transition that they used or like the effects that they used were really special. And so they showcase kind of the behind the scenes, and that post sometimes gets even more attention than the actual post itself.
It's very cool. I love the framing. Thank you. I was thinking when you started down the behind the scenes perspective, it was like how we literally make it, and here's how a mold is made in Shenzhen, and like
that could definitely work as well, right? And so there's a lot of different types of behind the scenes content you can make, right? And you can also fictionalize behind the scenes content as well. So like a really good example of this most recently is, the movie Marty Supreme, Timothy Chalamet, he had this like Zoom call that was fictionalized, but it was part of a promotion, and like that incredibly viral. But that was kind of a manufactured intimacy or manufactured kind of behind the scenes. So I think you're going to see a lot of different brands play around with this. But I think, the overarching theme is how do you show the effort?
I like it. We are going to show Zach and DB and Agni, our ML engineer, and our data science team just like building out AI customer segment. Literally the most boring.
But I think you'll find like a tech crowd, for
Yeah,
example,
it'll
really
be you.
appreciate that, right? So yeah,
Tetsuro and Matt from Faring signed up. This is exciting.
that's right. That's
No,
right.
thank you. It's very cool. All right, two kind of themes left that I want to talk to you about. One is problem spaces, opportunities. Like, where do you think if you're talking to people who are thinking about entrepreneurship or existing companies that are like adding new stuff, like what are some of the problem spaces that you think haven't been explored enough? And then the second question will be more tactical about international expansion. But let's start with the like kind of request for startups. What problems do you want to see solved?
Yeah, it's a really hard question. I think there's so many different problems in the world, and because I'm interested in so many different spaces, it's really hard for me to answer this. I think there's a lot. I think there's a lot of questions about how organizations operate, how transactions are done, how to build relationships, all in this AI era that are not answered yet. And this relates to commerce. This relates to kind of org structures. This relates to a bunch of different stuff um, that I don't think are that are really answered. And I think so. This idea of like AI native startups that you see way too often now are not actually AI native startups, right? They're AI enabled startups,
Mm.
and so I think how do you kind of rethink things from zero basis, right? How do you think about Slack from zero basis? How do you think about is ChatGPT is that the right structure in terms of actually building a relationship with a customer for them to buy something? How do you actually build in an era where more and more traffic is being consumed by these AI chatbots? All these different things, like I think, yeah, how do you build kind of these direct relationships is going to be a big question that I think hasn't been answered for a lot of brands.
I think you interviewed Sarah Du recently.
Yeah,
You're building something like a Slack from the ground up. Is that right?
that's what she says.
Sarah, I am an investor in Alloy, like definitely the smallest investor from God knows how long ago. So I was excited.
Likewise, we're very small investors.
Yeah. Okay. We'll compete and see who's the smallest one. I still wear my Alloy sweater every once in a while, which is kind of great. Yeah, I'm excited to see what she's building. All right, maybe the last theme, just tactically, talk to me if we want to, like, I'm running a brand still and I'm thinking about international expansion. Generically, how should I think about it? But specifically, like entering the Japanese market, like how would I do that in a strategic way?
Yeah, I think you know, understanding it's a very different culture in Japan. It's going to be a lot easier for you to go international in other places usually first. But I think the first question is, do you have a somewhat of a dedicated fan base in Japan? Because Japanese people really like American stuff, and if they haven't found your stuff already, then it's probably going to be a red flag. Test the market out in that sense of looking on different websites in Japan. There's a few that specifically sell imported goods as well, and so like looking at that, and then I think figuring out who to kind of partner with, what the right method of going into the market. Is it going to be just e-commerce first? Is it going to be a storefront? Most Japanese customers prefer stores rather than e-commerce, and so especially in Tokyo, and so within Tokyo, right? Tokyo is such a large place. Do you sell in Ginza versus Harajuku versus Shibuya? All these different places have very different demographics depending on who you're targeting. It's very similar to the US, right? Like selling in New York and even within New York, right? Selling in Soho versus Upper East Side versus Upper West Side. All that stuff changes. And it's the exact same thing in Japan. So really understanding the customer base and then seeing how can you kind of apply it to them is, I think, the biggest question.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, it was very interesting from passport shipping days, right? If you had your like map of where US brand ships, it's like 50 or 60% Canada,
Mhm.
20 or 30% UK, maybe 10% Australia, and then
Mhm.
10% rest of the world, 5%. It was like something
Yeah.
like that, almost without fail. And there were so few brands that had a big presence in Japan, though those that
Mhm.
did, it was like, if you're there, you're there, right? It was
Yeah.
obviously very much held on to. Tetsuro, thank you. This has been really fun. The
Yeah.
last questions for you, and you can choose not to answer if you don't want to. You have to answer one of them.
Okay.
I definitely want you to let everybody know where to find you and where to follow you. And then if there was any other takeaways, you shared a lot here, but anything, even if you said it, you just want to double click on that you wanted to share with the audience, please.
Yeah, I think I think both that off topic and Harizury, what we're always looking to do is kind of help bridge the gap between Japan and the US, whether that's through helping brands and software kind of expand between the two countries, or kind of test the market, kind of see what it's like, or if they just want to understand. And so, if anyone who's listening to this is interested in just learning about Japan, kind of trying to understand what it's like, feel free to reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter, although it's all in Japanese. So yeah, if LinkedIn, just find me by my name. On Twitter, it's I think T Miyatake1. Yeah, I think what we're always looking for is really interesting founders, regardless of whether we invest in them, to chat with them and to learn from them. And we usually make at least 3 trips at least to the US every year. And so if you're around, would love to come see everybody. And then Aaron, I think we've only met in person maybe twice.
I think so. Last time
yeah.
I literally walked by you in a park. So
Yeah. I think Beanstalk was the last time we actually kind of chatted. And so, we'll have to catch up again.
I'll see you early this year, man. We're going to be showing out. We're going to do as many in real life, IRL, as you could say, events. We've got stuff coming up at NRF, and then at ETAIL, and then Shop Talk. We're already scheduling it out. We're doing a bunch of Klaviyo events, so I'll be on a plane a lot this year. So I'm excited to see you.
Yeah, excited to see you.
All right, man. Well, thank you. This was very fun. Appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Aaron Schwartz, co-founder and co-CEO of Orita.ai. We build AI customer segmentation for some of Klaviyo's biggest brands like Oriana, Spanx, Caraway, Third Love, True Classic, Run Beauty, and on and on. Brands come to us to help find untapped revenue, improve their click rate, drive away mean bots, and a bunch more. You can learn more or get a free customer engagement audit at Orita.ai.